Hey, this is Jody Roundhouse. This is a supplement to Patrick Zelensky, aka at Morphing Reality. His book, Tale of Two Worlds, which details the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. I am going to talk very briefly, or try to keep it so, about how the Chinese fought us in Korea. Not many people know. Nowadays, not many people even know that we fought China in the Korean War. But we beat the shit out of Korea, excuse my language, and we pushed up to the Yalu River. That's what borders North Korea and China to this day, the Yalu River. And we were pushing our troops up, and the Chinese managed to sneak 250,000 troops. That's a relatively conservative estimate. Some have it higher. 250,000 troops they snuck into the mountains of North Korea without us knowing it. So we were up here, and they got behind us, and then they launched a series of attacks. So I'm going to briefly explain. Number one, check out this picture. That's a picture of a Chinese unit moving across the Yalu, getting ready to fight. And let's see what else we got. There's actually a picture of a human wave attack, because that's how the Chinese won. They won using human wave tactics. If it wasn't for all the for their lack of respect for human life. If they didn't have the numbers that they had, 250,000. I'm not sure how many we had in Korea, but I know that the guys up north in the Korean War who we were fighting the Chinese with, it was about 20,000. I'd have to look it up. Mr. Zelensky could refresh my memory. This is from a movie, but I think it properly captures the scale, because there's anecdotal and the reason I show that is because there's anecdotal reports. I've seen documentaries, and I've also read books where people, forward air observers, forward air controllers would call in airstrikes. They would crawl over a hill and they look down, and one guy equated it to like a field of wheatgrass. Just the whole valley, the entire valley was just full of troops. And he was like, oh shit. And they ran back, but it was too late then. This is how they were very effective. They were used to fighting one another. They were used to fighting, because the Chinese Civil War had ended in 1949. And the nationalists had been fighting Mao's communists. Mao won. That's who 1951 intervened, because China thought that we were pushing up on them, and that the real reason for the Korean War was to launch an invasion to China. And North Korea is a nice little pit bull buffer state to have, so they were like, nope, and they sent a bunch of troops into North Korea. And these guys were seasoned fighters. They had fought, like I said, each other during the Civil War, and they had fought the Japanese during World War II. And that's really where they learned how to fight, was fighting the Japanese. This is just a brief thing here, or a small thing. 500 U.S., so this would be a frontline position. Let's, for the sake of simplicity, Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3. Units in a frontline position, they tie each other together. Unit 1's flank is protected by Unit 2. Unit 1's left flank is protected by Unit 3. So they all tie together to form a front line. Okay, now let's say this is 500 U.S. troops total. 500 U.S. troops. Frontline position, North Korea. This is our rear. We're good to go. And this is a defensive position overlooking like a downward slope, like a field, the foliage. All right, here's the next one. Let me go ahead and turn on the boom torch. Okay. Now each Chinese soldier only carried 2 days worth of rations. They would only attack at night, usually. They perfected their warfare again during the Civil War and fighting the Japanese. And they would use odd things, bugles, trumpets, whistles. Some of them learned English. I'm over here, Charlie. Or they'd yell out, hey, Joe, I need a medic. They'd yell out stuff like that. I've seen anecdotal stuff. One veteran said that everything would be quiet, and then all of a sudden, boom, he'd hear like horses galloping in the distance, and then a bunch of bugles would go off, and then like behind their position, whistles would be going off, and he's like, nobody knew what was happening. And this is an example. Let's say 5,000 Chinese troops attack the position I just showed you. We have 500 U.S. troops. 5,000 Chinese troops, 10-to-1 ratio. Alright, here's that slope I told you about. The Chinese were very good at breaking open our flanks. And we got Unit 1, covers this part of the front line here. And you got Unit 2 here. Unit 3. Well, the Chinese, and they learned this from the Japanese, they would break through right where one unit connected up with another unit. Like one company connects with another company. They would break through. They'd find that weak spot and break through. They would outflank us. They would get in between our units and get behind, and they would establish a blocking position. That way we can go anywhere. So we got 500 U.S. troops here, and we have 5,000 Chinese troops here. And they are going to use their human wave attacks. Once they get this, so that they know we can't retreat, once that's in place, they just start flooding people across. Flooding people across. Those red check marks, or those red X's, indicate dead bodies. Because we beat the crap out of the Chinese. Man for man, we were much better soldiers, much better fighters than the Chinese were. The Chinese proved to be very effective. They were very disciplined. There was one anecdotal story. The Forward Air Observer, again, was on the front line, pushing against the Chinese advance, and he saw a column of Chinese. And all of a sudden, he called in artillery, and the shells started landing, and he said right in the center of that column, an artillery shell landed. And the Chinese just kept going. I mean, they got jacked up, obviously, by the artillery shell, so that surrounding area was destroyed. But he said that they recomposed themselves, and they got back in a line, and they kept going, past all the body parts and crap. They were very disciplined. But again, they only kept 2 days worth of rations on them, which is why they would kind of like fight, and then they would like disappear. And everyone was kind of confused by that, but it was because of the rations issue. That's my pointer. I'm gonna have to use my bamboo pointer. Alright, so let's say 1,000 Chinese troops out of the original 5,000. They break through our flanks. Now they're behind us. 1,000 troops. This right here is already 2-to-1. At 500 U.S. troops here, got a freaking 1,000 Chinese behind them. And there's 4,000 Chinese in front of them. Now that the blocking force is in place, the Chinese human wave attacks begin. And they got mauled to pieces because these blue arrows, these are machine guns, these are fire teams. When we could, we'd bring in artillery, but again, that's why the Chinese fought at night, so that we couldn't bomb them, so that we couldn't hit them with artillery. So we would fight, we would shoot, throw grenades, and we killed a bunch of them. And we killed, in the Battle for the Chosin Reservoir alone, which is one particular battle where we fought the Chinese in the freezing cold, Chinese estimates that we captured when we overran their outposts, their command and control outposts, the Chinese estimated that we killed or wounded 60,000 Chinese in just one battle. 60,000. We took a loss of like, Chosin Reservoir, geez, I need to get my numbers up. 2,000. They lost 60,000, something like that. During the entire war, they lost tens upon tens of thousands of troops, if not hundreds of thousands of troops when it was all said and done, because they would run across the field at our position. They'd run. And again, these attacks would start with bugles and whistles and horns, and our guys would be like, what the fuck? What is happening here? Horses. I've read and heard all sorts of anecdotal stuff from the people who were there. Okay, blocking forces in place, the Chinese start hauling ass across the field, and we mow them down with our machine guns. Just mow them down. We kill them. These are all dead bodies. But guess what? There's a bunch of Chinese troops, and they just keep coming. So the first wave gets killed here. Then they send the second wave. And they make it to here. Across all those bodies, they make it to here. And they send their third wave, and they make it out to here. And they send their fourth wave. Uh-oh, now they're pushing right up against us, because now our 500 troops are running out of ammunition, and that is how they got us every time. We would kill them we would kill so many of them, we ran out of ammunition. And it got to the point, I've read accounts, they'd run out of United States forces, we'd run out of ammunition for our machine guns, machine gun barrels would melt, run out of barrels for our machine guns because they'd melt, rifle ammunition, mortars, stuff like that, it'd run out. They'd be down to hand grenades and a knife. So then they'd start throwing their hand grenades, and they'd kill this, then they were out of hand grenades, and they had knives. By this point, another 1,000 Chinese troops are coming across. They'd overwhelm us. We would try to retreat, blocking force, and this is how the Chinese would encircle us and fight us during the Korean War. Chinese human wave tactics, they were effective, but like I said, man for man, the United States had way better troops than the Chinese, and we devastated them in terms of death count. We used a lot of napalm. We used a lot of napalm on them. POWs, they would tell them, we're going to send you back to your commander. Tell them to stop dropping napalm on us. We used a lot of napalm. What can I say? But, we would just mow them down. I tried to find pictures online to show you. I've seen pictures after a battle. It'd be a field just full of bodies. Just full of bodies, as far as you could see. It was full of Chinese bodies. It was complete madness. 250,000 troops. In this example alone, this is 4,000 troops against 500 U.S. troops. This happened all across North Korea. And that's what stopped us in 1950/1951 from total victory. Then it turned into kind of a stalemate. We went down to the 38th parallel. The Chinese, this is the largest retreat in U.S. military history. The Chinese fought us and pushed us all the way back down below the 38th parallel. And then we fought our way back up. And then in 1951, we stalemated right here in the center, right where freaking the 38th parallel is. Like it was all for nothing. And we fought a trench warfare attrition type style war against the Chinese for the next 2 years until a peace treaty was finally signed. Most of our casualties came from the Chinese, not the North Koreans. North Koreans sucked. We bowled them over at Incheon. Which again, all of this is talked about in A Tale of Two Worlds by Patrick Zelinsky, aka at Morphing Reality, Minds.com. It's Jody Roundhouse, out.